Welcome to part 6 of Justin Baldoni's October 7 deposition. Mr. Baldoni, before the break, I had handed you Exhibit 32. I'm going to ask you about your message that appears on the first full page of Exhibit 32. Exhibit 32 is a text chain between yourself and a number of individuals on November 12, 2023. Is that right? Exhibit 32 marked for identification. Justin, yes. Gottlieb, and how would you describe, it looks like there's a title to this group. It says Prayers and Support. What is that? This is just a group of some of my best male friends. And Mr. Heath is on there. He's a friend and also a coworker, right? Yes. And what about Mr. Musial? My best friend and not technically a coworker, former partner. Former partner from Wayfarer Entertainment? Yes, but not with Wayfarer Studios. Not in an official capacity. Okay, anybody else in this chain that was with or an employee of Wayfarer Studios? No. Okay. So then, looking at your message, you have a message that carries over from Baldoni 26194 to 26195, and that's a message that you sent to this group. It looks like 11:40 a.m. It looks like 11:49 a.m. on November 12th, 2023. Is that right? Yes. And this is a day or two after you received the 17-point return to production. I haven't seen this, so I would love to read it. Okay, please do. I'm not going to ask you anything about it past your message. Okay, I read it. You knew that the protections for the return to production document with the 17 conditions insinuated that you were unsafe / sexually harassing. Shapiro, objection. Justin, I don't know what I knew at that time, but I clearly said that. I think I didn't know what she was actually insinuating, but I was clearly scared and filled with anxiety. Gottlieb, okay, but the words you used were, as read, I am unsafe / sexually harassing, etc., 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 right? Shapiro, objection. Justin, we all know what this document insinuates. Gottlieb, do you recall earlier in your testimony, I was asking you questions about whether you have ever understood that it was insinuated that you had sexually harassed anyone? I do remember that part of the conversation. And you answered that question with a no, right? Shapiro, objection. Justin, not sure what I answered. Gottlieb, okay, here you are saying, as read, we all know what this document insinuates, right? I see that. You say, as read, this is all a manipulation, right? I see that. I said that too. You say, as read, there's even silly things inferring Jamie was inappropriate, which is silly, right? I read that, yes. Is the reference to Mr. Heath that's in the 17-point list a reference to entering trailers? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I have no idea what I was referring to here. Gottlieb, okay, but what you knew was you thought that there was something inferring that Mr. Heath had been inappropriate, which you thought was silly? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I don't know what I was saying was silly. That's what I can tell you. Gottlieb, you said that as read. This letter was sent in an effort to gain power over you personally and the studio, right? I think that's what I believed. That's what you believed at the time? Very clearly, yes. Yet you thought all or nearly all of the requests or the conditions in the letter were reasonable, right? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I did. Gottlieb, so what kind of plan is that? Shapiro, objection. Gottlieb, if you're trying to come up with a plan to assert power and domination over somebody, why would you send them a list of 17 very reasonable things to do? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I can't speculate as to why someone would do that. Gottlieb, in the list of 17 conditions or the text that was accompanying it that was screenshot in the document we just looked at, was there any demand to send Miss Lively the unfinished director's cut of the movie? In what? In what we read together? In what we read together. No. Was there any demand that Miss Lively be allowed to take control of the edit of the film? In the 17-point list? In the 17-point list. No. Was there any demand about ultimate control over the content of the film? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I believe there was in the 17-point list. Gottlieb, and what is your recollection of that? I believe there was a paragraph where she asked for ultimate control over some of the content of the film. Just like what you said. What content was that? I believe any intimate scene depicting her character. Over intimate scenes, correct? Yes. But, okay, I consider that content. You say to your friend group, as read, we don't believe she will leave or leak to press, but this is her threat of a nuclear bomb as she knows this is the only way to get to me. Do you see that? I do. And what did you mean this is the only way to get to me? I'm not sure what I meant. Do you believe that as you sit here today, that the 17-point list was a nuclear bomb and the only way to get to you? Again, I don't know what I meant. This was a text set in a very confusing, dark period where I had no idea what was happening and I was filled with anxiety. Did you consider the 17-point list and the letter attached to it to be something that was pretty sensitive? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I'm not sure I know what you mean. Gottlieb, was it the kind of document that at the time you would have wanted to get out in public? Justin, I can't imagine I would want that. Gottlieb, you would have wanted it to be confidential, right? Shapiro, objection. Justin, yes. Gottlieb, it involved a series of conditions related to It Ends With Us and the production of It Ends With Us that involved rather sensitive matters, right? Objection. It was a legal document that came to our attorneys, so yes. Gottlieb, and it involved issues relating to personnel and employment with respect to the film, right? Shapiro, objection. Justin, yes. Gottlieb, so why did you feel like it was appropriate to send details about that to a friend group that includes lots of people that didn't work at Wayfair Studios? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I don't believe I sent the document itself or any attachments. Gottlieb, you just described it. Shapiro, objection. Justin, I wasn't aware that there was anything in that document saying that I couldn't describe it. Gottlieb, before when I was asking you about the incident in Miss Lively's trailer involving Mr. Heath, did you ever take any steps to confirm or learn what had actually happened in that meeting? Shapiro, objection. Justin, my understanding is anything that happened during that meeting interaction was discussed in person and worked out. And my recollection is Mr. Heath apologized to her for even looking in her direction. That's what he was apologizing for, and it never happened again. Gottlieb, did you ever take any steps to decide for yourself what you thought had happened? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I'm not sure what further steps I could have taken, as Miss Lively herself spoke to Jamie, and she was, and they were, the two people involved. Gottlieb, you later came to learn that Mr. Heath had a different view of what happened in the trailer with Miss Lively, right? Slightly different at the time. And so did you take any steps to try to ascertain whose version of events was correct or accurate? No, because at that time, the stories seemed to be pretty similar, and there was no reason to. It was worked out. Eventually, you believed Mr. Heath's version of what happened in the trailer. Objection. Again, at that time, which was 2023, the versions were very close. They seem to be very different now. Gottlieb, earlier we talked a little bit about the January 4th meeting in Miss Lively's apartment. Do you recall that? Yes. You said, well, withdrawn. You attended that meeting? I did. It was memorable? Shapiro, objection. Justin, that's one way to put it. Gottlieb, would you characterize it as traumatic? I, for me, would. I'm not sure if anyone else would. I'm only asking about you, sir. Shapiro, objection. Justin, yeah. Gottlieb, during that meeting, did Miss Lively read a list from her phone? She did. Do you have a distinct memory of her reading a list of incidents or items from her phone to the group during that meeting? I do. Okay. I'm going to mark the next exhibit, Exhibit 33. Mr. Baldoni, you've been handed what's been marked as Exhibit 33. This is a document bearing the Bates numbers BL 38461 through BL 38462. Exhibit 33, marked for identification. Gottlieb, have you had a chance to review this exhibit, Exhibit 33? I have. Do you know, one way or the other, as you sit here today, whether this is the list that Miss Lively read from her phone during that meeting on January 4th? This was not the list that Miss Lively read from her phone. How do you know that this is not the list that Miss Lively read from her phone in that meeting on January 4th, 2024? For one, she never used the wording "no more," so that's how I know, first off. Okay, and you know that based on your specific recollection of how she spoke to you during that meeting? I know that because I was present and in shock of what I was hearing and paid very close attention to the words, and "no more" was never used. It also says an updated list, so I'm not sure when it was updated. Okay, well, apart from your identification of "no more," do you have any other reason to believe that this list is not what Miss Lively read from during the meeting on January 4th, 2024? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I think that's a big one. I mean, the fact that she never said "no more" shows it's not the same list. Gottlieb, I'm asking if there's any other reason. Justin, yes, there are certain, I would say there's quite a few things in here that were not read or discussed that day. Do you recall Miss Lively saying during the meeting that this was the worst experience of her life? I do. Do you recall her saying that during the meeting that others had witnessed this behavior? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I don't remember those exact words, no. Gottlieb, do you recall the words creepy or abuse being used in reference to your behavior? I definitely don't remember the word abuse. I think I remember the word creepy. Do you recall feeling embarrassed while Miss Lively was reading out these items? I think that could be accurate for one of the things I was feeling. Yeah. I want to mark another exhibit. Before I go on, Mr. Baldoni, I can't remember if Ange Giannetti is one of the people whose depositions you listened to. Did you listen to that one? I listened to part of it, yes. Did you listen to the part where she testified about the January 4th meeting? I'm unsure. Do you know one way or another whether Ange Giannetti testified about whether this list, Exhibit 33, is what she remembered Miss Lively sharing during that meeting? I don't know. Would you be surprised to learn that Miss Giannetti testified this is the list she remembers Miss Lively sharing? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I wouldn't be surprised. Gottlieb, okay. Exhibit 34. Mr. Baldoni, you've been handed what's been marked as Exhibit 34, which is another text chain in the prayers and support text there we talked about, I think, in Exhibit 32. This is a document bearing the Bates numbers Baldoni 26204 through 26206. Go ahead and read it. Exhibit 34, marked for identification. Justin, okay. Gottlieb, this is a text chain on January 5th, 2024, with the prayers and support group that you testified about previously. It appears to be so. And is that a WhatsApp group or is that a group just on your phone? I don't think it was WhatsApp. I think it was just a message. And this is the day after the January 4th meeting, right? It appears to be January 5th, correct. Mr. Wilson is asking for an update at 6:20 p.m. Yes. And you respond, I certainly do. And in your response, you acknowledge that Miss Lively conveyed that you had made her feel unsafe. Is that right? Essentially, that's what she said, yes. You say, as read, my brain was trying to defend itself when they were needing me to apologize for all the ways I have effed up and made her feel unsafe, right? That's what I wrote, yes. And you disagreed with Miss Lively, I imagine, very strongly. But you understood very well her to be saying that you had made her feel unsafe, right? I understood that that's what she was insinuating by reading from this list. Okay, and you say here, you were, as read from a phone all the things that I did, while many of them were based in actual situations. The events were wrong and things were taken completely out of context. Do you see that? I do. And so were you saying here that the list includes a number of things and situations that occurred, but you disagree with the way that they were being framed and the context they were being placed in? Shapiro, objection. Justin, yes, completely. Gottlieb, you see here the word creepy and abused were used in reference to me and my behavior. I do see that, yes. And you see a little bit later, you say that you were, as read, unable to respond. Mr. Heath did a beautiful job apologizing. You were embarrassed that you were unable to formulate the correct words to apologize and honestly feel like a bad person. Do you see that? I would beat myself up a lot, clearly. You said, as read, it's hard to feel so much of what they believe about me is false because they are so convinced that it's real. Do you see that? I do. Did it occur to you that they might be right? Shapiro, objection. Justin, no. Did it occur to you that maybe some of the ways you had perceived how your actions had affected Miss Lively were inconsistent with how Miss Lively perceived your actions? Shapiro, objection. Justin, can you ask that one more time? Gottlieb, did it occur to you that maybe you and Miss Lively did not share the same feelings about events that you both recognized occurred? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I think it was very clear we didn't share the same feelings. My issue was with the actual events themselves. Gottlieb, did it occur to you that certain events that you knew had occurred might have had a different effect on Miss Lively than they had on you? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I'm not sure. Gottlieb, you were told that this was the worst experience of Miss Lively's life. Justin, I believe I wrote that down, so did that give you pause, Mr. Baldoni? Shapiro, objection. Justin, in what way? Gottlieb, in a way that you were making a movie about an important subject. It was important to you, consistent with the mission of your studio. You wanted to empower women and tell a story through a female gaze, and you had your lead actor, co-star, saying it was the worst experience of her life. Objection. Justin, I found it very confusing. Gottlieb, this is 35, Exhibit 35, marked for identification. Justin, thanks. Gottlieb, Mr. Baldoni, you've been handed what's been marked as Exhibit 35. It's a document bearing the Bates numbers Baldoni 18852 through 18856. And I apologize if I've asked this before, but who is Travis Van Winkle? It's one of my best friends. Okay, not a Wayfarer employee. not a Wayfair employee. And this is a text chain between you and Mr. Van Winkle on February 23rd, 2024. Is that right? Yes. All right, take a minute, read through it, and I will ask you some questions. You've had a chance to read Exhibit 35? I have. This is your text exchange with Mr. Van Winkle. It is. At 11:15 a.m., which is on the bottom of page 18854 in reference to Sony, you say, as read, they just want the movie to do well and they can't release a movie the star doesn't promote. Do you see that? Yes. You believe that was true, right? At one point, Josh has said they would release it even if she doesn't. But my saying they can't, I mean, I'm just mincing words. But overall, they did not want to or suggest releasing a movie that a star wouldn't promote. Sort of common knowledge, the studio doesn't want to release a movie that the lead didn't want to engage in the promotion of. Yes. Not a super controversial proposition, right? I don't think that would be. All right, that was true from day one, right? What was? That if Miss Lively didn't want to promote the movie, it was going to be difficult to release it. I'm sure that was one of the reasons that Sony suggested her. And it was one of the reasons you wanted her on the film, right? Because if Miss Lively promoted the movie would be more successful. Shapiro, objection. Justin, I'm sure that was one of the reasons. Gottlieb, because she's a star? Yeah. In fact, you recall having a conversation with Mr. Heath at that time. You were trying to bring Miss Lively on in December of 2022, where you and Mr. Heath say everybody loves Blake Lively. Justin, I don't remember that conversation, but I'm sure you have it. Would it surprise you if you had the conversation with Mr. Heath? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I don't think it would. Gottlieb, you thought in December of 2022 Miss Lively had a sterling reputation. Is that right? I believe I did. And that she was well liked by fans? Yes. Yes, I believe I did. And the kind of person who could help drive box office success, right? Yes, along with her husband and her best friend. And the kind of person who could help get the message, the important message of your movie out, right? Shapiro, objection. Justin, yes. I hope that would be a big part of it. Gottlieb, so you would have disagreed in December of 2022 if someone had said that Miss Lively has got a terrible, well-known reputation in the industry. Nobody likes her. Shapiro, objection. Justin, nobody told me that. Gottlieb, if Katie Case or Brianna Coslow had told you that in December of 2022, would you have found that very surprising? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I don't think I can speculate on that. Gottlieb, okay, on the previous page, 18853 at 11:01 a.m., you say of Miss Lively, as read, she had the nuclear bomb. If she doesn't promote the movie, she can leak that I'm a bad person or that she felt unsafe with me and all the stuff she has on me. Then she's the victim. It's the Taylor Swift playbook. So she can ask for whatever she wants because she knows I know. Do you see that? I do. Did you mean that? Shapiro, objection. What? Justin, what part of it? Mr. Gottlieb, all of it. I don't know. You had agreed to the conditions that Miss Lively asked for to return to set, right? Yes. And upon the return to production, so far as production on the set went, things went pretty well, right? According to your own complaint, everything went great. Any other incidents that you can think of after January 4, 2024? No. So what is all this stuff that Miss Lively had on you that constituted the nuclear bomb? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I don't know. Gottlieb, would it be that the items in the list that Miss Lively read from in the meeting on January 4th you are referring to here? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I'm sure that was a part of it. Gottlieb, is that what, sorry, go ahead. No, please. Is that what you were afraid that Miss Lively might leak? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I'm not sure what she was going to do. I can't. I was very in the dark. Gottlieb, what else would you have been thinking of when you were referring to a nuclear bomb? And you referred to her, Miss Lively, leaking, I'm a bad person or that she felt unsafe with me. Shapiro, objection. Justin, I think when you are somebody small in the industry like myself, and you're dealing with a titan like Miss Lively, and some of the most powerful people in the world, which are her best friends, and you're in the situation that I was in, I think it's very reasonable, especially at this point, to be concerned about what's possible and what's not. I was spinning at this point. Gottlieb, is there anything else you can think of other than the material contained within the 17-point list or the list that Miss Lively read from on January 4th, 2024, that as you sit here today, you might have been referring to when you referred to a nuclear bomb that could be leaked? Shapiro, objection. Justin, nothing about the 17-point list, but I assure you that list that was read to me contained complete fabrications of the truth. So I very well could have had that be a part of what I felt scared of, lies. But I didn't know. I didn't know anything. I knew that at this point, my gut feeling was that she was going to take over the film. Gottlieb, lies? When you say lies, you mean lies insinuating that you had made Miss Lively feel unsafe? Justin, no, that's not what I mean. Lies insinuating that you had sexually harassed Miss Lively? Shapiro, objection. Justin, no, I'm speaking about lies in general. Gottlieb, you're the co-head of Wayfarer Studios, are you not? I am the co-chairman. The co-chairman of Wayfarer Studios, but the executives answer to you and Mr. Sarwitz? Shapiro, objection, objection. Justin, the executive answer to our CEO, and our CEO reports to me and Sarwitz. Gottlieb, and you testified earlier that you could fire the CEO if you wanted to. I imagine I could. Yeah, I imagine I could. And it's Mr. Sarwitz's money that financed this particular project, is that right? Co-financed. Co-financed? Yes. And if you wanted to, you could have just decided not to go forward with the movie, right? Shapiro, objection. Justin, at what point? Gottlieb, at any point. Not necessarily. As of February 23, 2024, could you have pulled the plug on the movie? I don't believe so. Even, you don't believe you could have done so without inviting litigation? Is that what you're saying? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I believe this was the biggest project that we'd ever invested in, ever had, and we had a tremendous amount of money invested in it. And so did Sony, who were our partners. So we had an obligation, a fiduciary obligation to Sony and to Steve's family to not pull out of the film. Gottlieb, to not lose that money? Shapiro, objection. Justin, it wasn't just about money. It was one of the major factors, yes. Gottlieb, okay, but nonetheless, you're the co-founder of the studio, right? Yes. You're the director of the film, right? Yes. You are the co-lead actor, right? Yes. You are an executive producer, right? At that time, I was. That is a lot of accumulated power on one movie, is it not? Shapiro, objection. Justin, it is. And also, I don't think it's unusual. Gottlieb, is that the typical arrangement that you're familiar with? I wouldn't say it's a typical way. Shapiro, objection. Gottlieb is not typical. It's also not unheard of. Is that what you're saying? Shapiro, objection. Justin, yeah. Gottlieb, and you knew that the accumulation of positions gave you a lot of power over the movie, didn't you? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I don't believe I thought of it that way. Gottlieb, did it make you mad that Miss Lively had power in the context of the production of the film? Shapiro, objection. Justin, did it make me mad that Miss Lively had power? No. Gottlieb, do you recall ever having a conversation with any representatives of WME before Miss Lively was signed onto the film about the conditions and demands that she was making in advance for coming onto the film? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I don't recall a specific conversation. Gottlieb, do you recall ever drafting content that you wanted to communicate to WME that you shared with Mr. Heath in December of 2022? Justin, I don't, but I'd be happy to see it. Do you recall ever saying, I discovered this book? I don't recall. I control this film. Shapiro, objection. Justin, I don't recall. Gottlieb, did you discover the book? Shapiro, objection. Justin, did I discover the book? The book was given to me by my book agent. Gottlieb, did you turn It Ends With Us into a success as a book? Justin, no, not me singularly. Did you play a substantial role in it becoming a success as a book? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I'm sorry. I thought you had said movie. The book I played no role in becoming a successful book. Gottlieb, okay, that was Colleen Hoover, right? Completely. Gottlieb, Mr. Baldoni, you've been handed what's been marked as Exhibit 36. Exhibit 36 is document bearing the Bates numbers Baldoni 33560 through 33566. And this is a text chain between you and Mr. Heath on April 27, 2024. Exhibit 36 marked for identification. Justin, yes. Gottlieb, you're having a discussion here with Mr. Heath about the trailer. If it's okay, I'd love to read it. I haven't seen it. Oh, sure. Sorry. Okay. I understand this is a very personal exchange you had with your friend, Mr. Heath. It is. And a moment of vulnerability and candor, right? Shapiro, objection. Justin, yes. Gottlieb, you're talking in this exchange with Mr. Heath about your frustrations that have been building for you and culminating in the construction of the trailer. Is that right? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I believe so, yes. Gottlieb, and you say a series of things to Mr. Heath, and that causes Mr. Heath to get a little bit upset. That's a pattern that we have together. We tell each other the truth and we get out. And then we come back to each other. And then Mr. Heath, he's always a voice of reason for me. Sorry, Mr. Heath, I think, wisely advises that you both sleep it off and come back tomorrow, right? He's a wise man. And when you do come back, you apologize to Mr. Heath for what you were saying the night before, right? At 2:23 p.m. on the 27th on page 33565. Yeah, I believe we could sum it up that way. And what you say is you've come out of therapy and you're purging out and exhausted. And then you say, as read, so much fear of Blake coming out and going public about how I'm a bad person and unsafe and not who I say I am. Do you see that? I do. And that's similar language to the fear that you described to Mr. Van Winkle in the document we just looked at a few minutes ago from February, right? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I believe so. Gottlieb, you were very concerned that Miss Lively would go public with some of the materials or allegations that had been contained in the 17-point list and in the list you read on January 4th, right? Shapiro, objection. Justin, again, I disagree with anything to do with the 17-point list. Gottlieb, but you think it might have referred to items that were in the January 4th list? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I'm sure I had feelings about the lies that I felt were in the January 4th meeting, but I think it's a very reasonable feeling that I'm expressing here. Gottlieb, Mr. Baldoni, was the thought of someone saying publicly that you were not who you say you are one of your biggest fears? I think based on where I was emotionally in my healing journey therapy at that time in going through this film, I would imagine that was a fear, yes. And that's what you're referencing here to Mr. Heath, isn't it? With your reference to the little boy that you're so intertwined with? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I'm just out of therapy and clearly not very sober in terms of my emotional state, so I was extremely sensitive and vulnerable and clearly in a very dark place at that moment. I understand, and I'm sorry to press on it, but you're saying to Mr. Heath, I think, particularly in this carryover message at 2:33 p.m. on 27th, that your personality is being overrun by this little boy who feels scared and threatened. Is that what you're conveying to Mr. Heath in this message? Shapiro, objection. Justin, no. Gottlieb, that's not what you meant by, as read, he's been running the show when he feels scared and threatened, and that's who you get so frustrated with? Shapiro, objection. Justin, what I meant by that is, in moments of intense emotion, in moments where I'm short or I can get angry very quickly, in those moments, I believe that is the little boy in me that doesn't feel safe. And it's in those moments, like the moment I just read, watching the way that I was even texting him, almost with like a frantic energy, it feels like a little kid. And in those moments, it feels like that boy is in charge. It's not literal by any means. Gottlieb, but the feeling, which I recognize is a figurative description of your internal process, is what you're describing to Mr. Heath, occurred to you emotionally the night before, right? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I can't say exactly. Gottlieb, and that feeling or the little boy or however we described it was able to make you behave towards your best friend and the CEO of Wayfarer Studios in a way that you clearly regretted the next day, right? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I think this is a very normal conversation for best friends who have been friends for as long as Jamie and I have. To have an outlet or a safe place to be angry and then to come back. I think marriage is a place like that, and I think friendships like mine and Jamie's, which I, too, this day feel so lucky to have, where you're not judged for moments where you're oversensitive or emotional, or you can say stuff you don't mean and come back later and not be judged. That's what I meant. Gottlieb, all right. Thank you, Mr. Baldoni. We're going to go off record. The videographer, we are going off the record. The time is 5:14 p.m. Recess. The videographer, we're back on the record. The time is 5:44 p.m.